Hello, I am Robin Duncan from Glasgow 2024 Presents. I'm here today with Patrick Samphire to ask him our Meet the Author questions, 10 very taxing and arduous questions for Patrick that give him the opportunity to talk about his writing and himself as much as he likes. So, sorry, I should welcome you first, Patrick. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Robin. It's kind of a grey, slightly misty day as we're used to in the UK, and but otherwise, yeah, very well, thank you.
Yeah, pretty much the same here. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Pretty much the same here. Yeah, kind of grey, but dry. So we'll take that. Um, and that, in fact, leads us nicely on to our first question, which is number one, where are you based?
I am living in Wales, in Abergavenny. I've been living here for about 15 years now, I think. Before that, I was in Leeds in England. So yeah, it's I like it here. It's a small town, and I'm kind of a city boy originally, but it's a nice little town, and yeah, we're kind of happy here.
Excellent, excellent. I do like Wales. I've been numerous times. To tends to be at the coast, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, excellent, good stuff, good stuff. Sticking with geography, question number two is obviously we're talking on the platform of Glasgow in 2024, Glasgow 2024, I should say.
Mhm.
What is your experience or impression of Scotland?
I haven't been to as much of Scotland as I would like to, but I've really enjoyed the bit I've been to. First time I went to Scotland, I think, was when I was a student, which was a long time ago now. So I'm not going to say how long ago it was. And we kind of did the kind of southwest of Scotland, and then I think as far up as Oban.
Right.
I've been to Edinburgh a couple of times, which I really liked, and once to Glasgow, which was actually for the last Worldcon that was in Glasgow.
Ah,
And yeah, that was great. It was
excellent.
fantastic.
Excellent. You've answered one of our upcoming questions, but we'll come on to that in due course because we'll switch to writing now. And then nominally the question is give us an elevator pitch for your book, but you please feel free to, to give us as long a pitch as you like.
Sure. I've just um 2.5 weeks ago published the last book in my current series, which I do conveniently have here. It's called
Excellent.
Legacy of a Hated God. It's a fourth and final book in what's called Menic Thorn series, which started with this one, which I also have because I'm really organized, which is called Shadow of a Dead God. Um, they're set in a vaguely Mediterranean fantasy location, approximately towards the end of the 18th century equivalent, but it's only a very vague equivalent. It's set in a big trading city with lots of gods and monsters and chaos, and the uh, the stories are essentially mysteries, but they tend to be mysteries around magic and gods and so on.
Excellent. Excellent. That sounds very interesting. Am I detecting from these sort of components that there's a fair amount of intrigue going on and
There's intrigue. There's quite a bit of humor in them, I'd
excellent.
say, although a kind of snarky, sarcastic humor for the most part. Um, and yeah, they're kind. There's definitely an influence of kind of hard-boiled detective, although yeah, we can go more onto that.
Oh,
But
yeah,
yeah, it's so they're kind of in some ways they're kind of slightly urban fantasy. I mean, they're urban fantasy, but in a completely different world,
yeah.
I suppose you could say.
Mhm.
Um, they were my that's my first series for adults. Before that, I wrote a couple of books for children, which which I don't have to hand because I'm not as organized as all that.
No worries.
Those were kind of pulp science fiction, um, set in about the era of the Napoleonic Wars, but on Mars.
Oh,
So
Excellent.
So kind of vaguely steampunky,
Okay.
um, yeah, but quite pulpy books as well.
That's excellent. That sounds like good stuff. I'm certainly intrigued by by your the series you've just finished, and shall need to look out for those. Okay, so question four. Question four, often touted to be the hardest question of the 10. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Right. Yes. That is very difficult. I'm going to be quite boring, not quite vanilla, but I will say that strawberry ice cream probably is what I'm going to go for. But
Yeah.
I do like I like ice cream with things in it, like toffee or fudge or
Yeah.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it's hard to turn those down, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm with you there. But yeah, strawberry. Yeah, yeah. It's good. You found an answer. A lot of people hedged their bets over that one, so well done. Back to writing. Question five is tell us a little about your main character, and anyone you want, but you know.
Yeah, the main character of this series is a guy called Menic Thorn or Nick Thorn. He's a kind of second-rate mage who lives a very chaotic life. It's He's basically constantly in out of his depth, dealing with things that he really shouldn't deal with, and he spends most of the books making things worse for himself and everyone around him.
Excellent.
Um, it's not autobiographical, I promise you. But I wanted to write a character who really didn't have the skills or the or necessarily the know-how to deal with the things that he came up
Uh-huh,
against.
uh-huh.
And then I wanted to see whether in his chaos and personal hang-ups and so on he could actually manage to deal with these problems that were really far out of his league.
Excellent.
And so yeah, he has a lot of problems with the equivalent of the magical police. He has a lot of problems with other mages in the city who are more powerful than him, and he gets himself arrested a lot. He gets yeah, someone described him as being the antagonist of his own books in that he
That's a
does
great
far
one.
more to get himself in trouble than any of the things he comes up against.
That's it.
But he gets through it because he's partially a lot of the humor comes from him, and a lot of it comes through determination, and somehow he gets through them. And part of the fun, I think, of the books is trying to work out how he's going to manage to get through these things and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, excellent. How can he possibly get out of this situation?
Yes.
I do.
Which is a terrible way to write, because you do that to yourself all the time. You put yourself in the situation. So I'm going to put him in this, and how is he going to get out of this? And then you have to work out how they're going to get out of this.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know. Everyone loves a challenge, don't they? But
do.
yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I hadn't done that myself, maybe once or twice. But yeah, I suppose it allows us to or challenges us to be more inventive, maybe. But no, it sounds like great stuff. I do like the sound of it very much. So let's move on to question 6, which is Star Wars or Star Trek?
Can I say neither?
Yes.
Which is not
Yes.
saying that I dislike them, but I grew up without a television because my parents had ideas about these things, so I didn't really experience them as a kid. I saw the odd Star Wars at Christmas at a grandparents' house, that kind of thing. So they weren't kind of foundational to me. And by the time I became an adult and started watching them, they were kind of, at least the existing ones were getting on a bit, and
Yeah.
there wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of this new generation stuff around at the time. So I think that if I really had to make a choice, I think I would probably choose Star Trek. I enjoy Star Wars, but I think Star Trek focuses more on people, and I've always been more interested in people and characters than I have in big adventure. So I I suspect maybe if I'd encountered them all as a child and become much more engaged with them, then I would have strong opinions. But I don't have greatly strong opinions on either of these. I'll
Absolutely.
watch them
Uh,
basically, and but I don't feel like I have to watch them straight away, or I have to get the
yeah,
merchandise or anything like that.
no, no.
So
Uh,
I think I was my foundation was more in books than it was in shows.
no, that's very interesting to hear that. Obviously, I don't know how many of these we've done, but and everyone has a slightly different answer in a way. But that's very interesting, indeed. And I certainly what you say about Star Trek focusing on character, it certainly resonates with me. Yes, I can certainly recognise that in it.
Yeah, and I'd say that of the more recent stuff, which I have
Hmm.
watched, I've certainly engaged more with some of the Star Trek ones and the Star Wars ones.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I think probably my favorite of all of them at this stage would be Lower Decks, Star Trek Lower
Yes.
Decks. It's just a fantastic show.
Yeah.
Whereas I haven't really engaged with many of the more recent Star Wars.
Hmm.
I really liked Andor, but apart from that, I think they're things I watch and then forget about.
Yeah, I mean, I be I would certainly I couldn't disagree that some of them are a bit forgettable. Yes, yes, true. But I'm a Lower Decks fan too, so yeah, I do like what they do with that, and it's beautifully sort of irreverent
Yeah,
but also sort of self-referential and cleaving to the mythos. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Right now, yes, here's question 7, and you've given us a sort of a taster of this one, but have you attended Worldcon before?
I have. I've only been twice to Worldcon. The first one I went to was in Philadelphia, which must have been 2001 or 2002, maybe. I'm not sure
Mhm.
which year exactly. And then I went to the last Glasgow one,
Right.
whenever that was, quite a long time ago.
2005, I think.
2005, I think that's
Because
right. Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
first two had a 5, and obviously this time we've got
yeah.
a
And
4.
they were
But
both fantastic experiences. They're kind of, in some ways, I prefer smaller conventions. I think I tend to go to EasterCon fairly regularly. I go to BristolCon most years.
mm,
Both, EasterCon's kind of medium-sized con, obviously, and BristolCon's a very small con, but it's
mhm.
it's one I particularly like. But with it being in Glasgow this year, I wasn't going to
Yeah.
say no, and
Yeah.
doesn't come here often. So,
No, no, it does not. It does not.
although I'm hoping that I think next year it's in Seattle, and I'm hoping to go to that one as well. Sorry, year after
Yeah,
it's in
year after.
Seattle. It's
Yeah.
and yeah, I've been to Seattle a couple of times before, and I really like it there. So we're hoping to go and do that one as well.
That in as well.
So
Excellent.
who knows? Maybe I'll start going much more regularly to Worldcon.
Well, Dublin was my first Worldcon,
Mm.
and I think they have bid. Am I getting this right? Yeah, I think they have bid for 2029, so 10 years on from the first one. So
Quite a long time. Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
another close one coming up. Who knows? But anyway,
yeah. I miss a Dublin one because I was in America at the time, and rather ironically that most of the time it's in America, and then the year it was in Dublin, I was in America. But there you go.
these things happen. Yes,
Yeah,
but certainly no. I fully agree in terms of it's a very different thing from like a Bristol Con. I've been to Bristol Con once,
mm,
and Satellite is our local Glasgow convention. Yeah,
yeah,
much different in terms of well, everything really.
yeah. The little ones are nice because you get you get to meet a few new people and you get to see the people you know. Obviously, when you go to a Worldcon, you may well not see the people you know the entire time because it's vast.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you don't know who. But on the other hand, it's also a place where you get to see some of these major names that you would never encounter otherwise. And yeah, so
Yes.
I am really looking forward to it. And actually going to the panels and readings and things, which I can't
Yes.
say I always do on smaller cons.
Yes. No, I've certainly found at smaller cons, it's quite easy to just kind of, as you say, almost kind of interact with people and sit and kind of catch up, and the program items often come and go, and you're you're sort of in the middle of a conversation or something,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that sort of thing. But yes, good stuff. No, it's good to hear that you're hoping to come to Glasgow, and yes, it's not long now. I think we'd be allowed to say that. It doesn't seem all that far away.
Yeah.
So question 8, back to writing, and perhaps an interesting question, seeing as you've just had your your fourth book out in your most recent series, if I'm right in saying that. What inspires you to write, and indeed, what maybe inspired you to write to begin with?
That's a good question. It's in some ways it's hard to answer what inspires me to write, because I've been writing for such a long time that it almost feels, well, I think I first decided I want to write when I was about 15 or 16, and a friend and I at school decided we were going to write this novel together. I went to our English teacher and said, we want to write this novel together. And she said, sure, go ahead. And she let us sit out the lessons writing a novel. And I do remember even asking her, if this is good enough, will you help us get it published? And she said, yes, with the obvious full knowledge that this was complete trash and nobody would ever be publishing this. But that's kind of how I started. And I was reading a lot of what in retrospect is fairly bad epic fantasy as a teenager and loving it. And I think I kind of thought, I love this so much. I want to be able to do the same thing that these authors are doing. And that's kind of what inspired me to start. But when I got to university, I think when I was 19, I kind of stopped again, kind of distracted by university life. And I stopped for about 10 years. And I only started again when I was in a job that was painfully boring, and I had nothing to do half the day. It was just, honestly, not sure why I was employed there, but and so I was just sitting with the computer in front of me, and I thought, maybe I could do some writing, and I found an online critique group there, and spent a lot of my days critiquing stories and submitting my own stories and getting feedback, and it kind of inspired me again, and I started writing seriously probably in about 2001. I went to Clarion West that year, and I spent quite a bit of time writing short stories, and then moved on to novels and so on. But so I guess since for the last 22 years, I've been kind of writing regularly, and I suppose part of it is that if I don't write, I start to get frustrated and restless, and I kind of feel like I don't really know what I'm doing with my life if I'm not writing a book. It's you kind of just going by, and that's fine, it's but I think it starts to weigh on me after a while. So it's almost, I guess I write because I don't know how to stop writing. I don't know what I'd do with myself if I stopped writing.
Excellent. Yeah. No, and it's obviously an urge then.
Yeah.
I guess, which is fine. Yeah, which is good. Interesting. I was fascinated by people's stories, and how they came to write. So that has brought us on to question 9, and it's one of these it's kind of like what's your favorite book, I suppose. But what is your favorite music or band? It could be to write to, or it could be to you know.
Oh, music's fairly easy for me, in that my favorite band is Iron Maiden, and it has been since I was 15 years old. So that's a very, very long time. I do listen to music when I'm writing. I need something which is quite loud and solid to kind of block out any possible
Okay,
distractions.
yeah.
And I need to have quite a good, strong beat as well to kind of drive me on. So it gives me a kind of momentum that if something is a bit fast. I actually once wrote a whole novel to a single song on repeat,
Wow.
which
Wow.
which I don't think I've listened to it again since.
No.
But it had
That's
such a strong beat that it really kept me going, writing faster, I think, than if I didn't.
right.
But I do get distracted by noises and so on if I don't have
Yeah.
it, and so it kind of fills up all of the part of my brain that isn't focused on the book.
Wow. That's interesting. Dare I ask what the song was? Are you willing to reveal it?
Yeah, it was a song called "Blind in Texas" by Wasp, and it had zero to do with the book I was writing.
Uh-huh.
But it just on repeat, it just
Yeah.
kept going, and I kept
Wow,
typing, and
that's quite a thing.
yeah.
Just the one song. Goodness me. And it's
I've,
like what, 4 minutes long or something like that? Or
yeah. I have no idea what my wife thought, but
no, that's, I mean, I've certainly even heard, people listening to like the same album or something, but one
yeah.
song, that's quite something. Um, Iron Maiden, yeah, that's probably the first band that I got into myself at probably the same sort of age. Um, Not first albums that I bought, but the first band I went to see live. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm there with you on that one, certainly. Very interesting. Right. No, well, so that brings us to question 10, which is what are you writing now or next?
I'm I'm sitting here and I've got just surrounded, or is about 6 different notebooks, and each of them kind of has a different idea in, and I'm kind of working through fleshing out all these different ideas of completely different books, and everything from kind of something set in 1920s London through to epic fantasy through to various other things, and so yeah, I'm kind of seeing which one gets to the writable stage first, and this is probably a really terrible way to do it. Um, I'm not. I'm not one of these authors who plots out the book in great detail before.
Okay.
I kind of need to know the characters. I need to know kind of where it's going, and I kind of need to know what I call the story behind the story. So the kind of the background story that the characters will interact with. But I don't tend to know what the character is going to do or what's going to happen to them, except maybe 1 or 2 big set pieces.
Yeah.
So a lot of it will be, there'll be a framework of where we're going. There'll be this stuff is happening, and then we'll see what happens. So I think it needs a fair amount of character building before I start on these kind of things, as well as a fair amount of world building, but not a great deal of plot building in advance.
Right. Interesting.
So I've got probably 2 or 3 that are fairly close to being ideas that I could write, and I guess one of them will happen, and the others may or may not happen depending on how things go. So yeah, not anything particular at the moment, but we'll see.
That is very interesting. We often, of course, when a book comes out and you've got a new book to hold up, an author will often have been, that was finished whenever, and they're busy working away on something else. So it's interesting to talk to someone who's actually at that stage of kind of choosing what to do next. So that's very interesting. And quite a diverse range of options as well. Good.
It is, and I mean, it's probably commercially not sensible to leap completely between genres. And like I said, the one I thing I did before was a children's space pulp kind of thing, and then we went to an adult fantasy, and if God knows what I'll end up doing next, but I don't know. I think I have to do it to keep myself interested.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, we'll see.
Excellent. No, very, very interesting. And I mean, if Brandon Sanderson can leap around genres, why
Yeah,
can't
but it
the
only
rest
takes him
why
about a
can't the
month to
rest of
write
us?
one, doesn't it? If he can do it, he can just throw one out there.
Yeah, or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
No, Patrick, it's been a pleasure to speak to you today.
And
Thank you very much for your time and telling us about your writing.
Thank you, Robin.
Not at all, not at all. So yes, this was Glasgow 2024 presents Meet the Author with Patrick Samphire, and we have a range of other Meet the Author and also Indie Author Reading Library recordings on our YouTube channel, which is where you found this one. And please do check them out, and please do come to Glasgow 2024 WorldCon in August of 2024. Check out our socials at the end of this recording, and do look at our other recordings. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. Find more Meet the Author interviews on our YouTube channel, along with Indie Author Reading Library performances and recordings of previous panels. Hit subscribe to get notifications for every new video. Find us at glasgow2024.org and as Glasgow in 2024 on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Check out our cool merch on redbubble.com/people/Glasgow2024/shop, and consider joining by emailing volunteers at glasgow2024